Hey, this is Onesto, and today I want to give you 4 tips on how to make your piano plugin sound more realistic and more human-like, so it can go from sounding something like this, some robotic trash, to sounding something more like this. Yeah, it's a whole lot better and human-like. Alright, so the first tip is to use and to automate your sustain pedal. The sustain pedal is really important when it comes to piano playing. If you don't use it, your piano playing just sounds broken. So this MIDI clip here has 0 sustain going on, and it just sounds kind of choppy. Now when I press the sustain pedal underneath my desk, hear that? Hear how the MIDI is now ringing out, the piano is ringing out. So let's say you don't have a sustain pedal, you can automate it inside your DAW. And typically a piano player will press the sustain pedal down at the start of a chord, and when it moves on to the next chord, they'll immediately lift it up and press it back down. So this is how it looks when it's drawn out. It looks something like this. Cool. So you see how right here, I have the sustain go off before the next chord. So here's how it sounds. See how it's ringing out? Now it's back off. So then what you do is just repeat the sustain automation all throughout your little clip here. So I'm gonna do it right now in fast motion. All right, cool, so I drawn it in. This is some tedious stuff, but drawing it in, this is how it'll look. Yeah, it's already sounding a little bit better, so let's move on to our next tip. All right, so tip number 2 is to get your MIDI and to add some imperfections to it. For whatever reason, when MIDI sounds too perfect, it can sound a bit colder, there's like a disconnect emotionally with it. It's really strange. So what I'm going to do is add imperfection when it comes to the velocity of each note and when it comes to the timing of each note. So let's start with the velocity first. So when you look here, see how like all the velocity is exactly 83.3%. That it's as if every single note is playing at that same velocity, which is very unhuman-like. So what I'm going to do in Bitwig at least, there's something called chaos. You can add a little bit of that, and it helps the MIDI already start to be more, just a bit more human-like. And then I'm going to drop it down like this, just kind of refine it. And 88 is kind of like that's like playing the piano really hard. So I'm just gonna drop it down to here like 67.5. Cool, so now our notes, they have a range of different velocities. So let's hear how it sounds now. Yeah, that to me is sounding already a whole lot better. And now we're gonna add some imperfections when it comes to the timing. Because right now, this is perfectly quantized, which is nice if you play like really sloppy like I do sometimes. I'll perfectly quantize it so it gets back in line, but then I gotta add in some humanness, some imperfections to the timing. So the way you do that in Bitwig at least is to, in your quantize, there's something called humanize. And I like to have it kind of at high amounts, to be honest, because I think it's that's when you can like really hear it. So click OK. And I'll show you what happened. If you zoom in, you'll see how things are no longer perfectly on the grid. So now let's hear it. Yeah, it's sounding a lot better. And before I move on to the third tip, if you can do me a favor and consider clicking the like button. If you find this video helpful, it helps the whole channel a whole lot, and I would really appreciate it. All right, cool. Let's go on to the next tip here, which is to add some reverb. When it comes to adding reverb to this piano here, I'm not so much trying to make this like huge, beautiful effect. I'm more so trying to put this piano in a space. The reverb I'm using today is called Reverb. I don't see a whole lot of producers using it, but I think it's pretty great. It has some pretty good algorithms on here. And one of my favorite features is the stucker feature right here. Let me just play it right here. Okay, see how suddenly with this reverb, the piano sounds like a performance is happening. It sounds like it was recorded somewhere suddenly. And then with the stucker, I'll turn it off. Without the ducker, I hear the piano and the reverb clashing. With it, Without it, I feel like that piano kind of comes back. You can hear the brightness in it because the reverb is being ducked out. All right, this last tip is more of a mixing tip, and I like using it a lot because it helps me at least make sure that my low end and high end of that piano sounds exactly the way I want it. And it's pretty much this. Get your piano clip and duplicate it. Duplicate that thing. And then what you would do is go on to one of your layers and get rid of all of the bass, like the left hand, and then go to your other clip and get rid of all of the right hand. So now you have your right hand here and your left hand here. So now what you can do is process the upper register in a different way than your lower register. So I have here a little clip that I've already messed with. It was in a little demo at the beginning. It was a good example. In the right hand, this is my EQ here. I got out a lot of the lows. I boosted the highs a bit. In my left hand, I kind of did the opposite. I took out the highs and just rolled off the lows by a little bit. Also reduced the reverb on the lower register and boosted it on the high register. And this is what I ended up getting at the end. Yeah, that sounds a lot better than this. Cool, that was fun, and those are 4 ways to make your piano plugin sound more realistic and human. Please consider liking this video if you thought it was helpful, and I hope I can see you again. Later.